Jack stood on the rough wooden platform, dust swirling at his feet. He shivered in the heat of the desert sun, eyes stinging as nobles in flowing robes whispered behind him. His wrists were bound with coarse metal cuffs, and his heart pounded. In fear, the auctioneer's voice boomed, selling slaves like cattle, but Jack hardly heard the offers. Then a hush fell. Queen Azara stepped forward, her silhouette framed by pale sands. She wore a simple gown of dark silk that shimmered in stray sunbeams. She looked at Jack with calm eyes. Without hesitation, she raised her bidding paddle higher than any other noble dared. Murmurs passed through the crowd. They watched as Azara claimed Jack for more credits than anyone remembered hearing. As the final gavel fell, guards released Jack's bonds and led him off the platform. He stumbled down the ramp, blinking against the glare. Queen Azara waited at the base, her hand extended. She did not smile, but her voice was gentle when she spoke. "You belong to me now," she said. Jack's throat tightened. He nodded, not trusting himself to speak. The palace ship hovered nearby, its hull gleaming white against the orange sky. Guards ushered them aboard, and Jack found himself in a quiet chamber filled with soft cushions and distant music. He sank to the floor, too afraid to rise. Queen Azara followed and sat on a low dais, motioning for Jack to join her. He obeyed, knees scraping on the polished floor. She signaled a servant, who approached with a bowl of cool water and a cloth. Jack drank and wiped his face, feeling something he had not known in years: relief. Azara watched him, studying every tremble and swallow. After a moment, she spoke softly. "You will find no cruelty here," she promised, glanced at her uncertain. His life before this moment had been full of cruelty and pain. Could she mean her words? The ship's engines hummed as it rose above the dunes. Through a small window, Jack saw the desert shrink until only distant ridges remained. He shivered again, but this time not from cold. He was leaving behind the slavers and heading toward an unknown destiny. Queen Azara remained silent beside him, her gaze fixed on the horizon. After a long pause, she asked, "Tell me your name." Jack swallowed. "Jack," he whispered. Azara repeated the word, letting it hang between them. Then she nodded, as though approving a fine choice. Minutes passed in silence before Azara rose. She motioned for Jack to stand. He obeyed, legs unsteady beneath him. She led him down a long corridor lit by pale crystals set into the walls. Torches flickered shadows of blue and green across polished stone. Jack felt dizzy from the sight. The palace was more magnificent than any world he had known. Servants knelt in his path, eyes lowered. Even the air smelled different, cool and fresh with a hint of jasmine. They entered a vast hall where tapestries lined the walls, each embroidered with scenes of Azara's ancestors. She stood before one that showed her great-grandmother in battle, wielding a blade of strange metal. Eyes awed by its detail. Azara spoke quietly. "This is my legacy. You will learn to respect it." Jack bowed slightly, unsure what respect meant in this strange place. After the tour, Azara led Jack to a chamber filled with books stacked on low shelves. She sat at a small table and gestured for him to sit opposite. Servants brought ink, parchment, and quills. Azara picked up a slim volume and opened it. "This is a history of my people," she said. "Read to me from the beginning." Jack hesitated, but lifted the book. The writing was elegant and curved, unlike any letters he had seen on Earth. Azara waited patiently as he sounded out the words. His voice trembled, but he read each sentence. Azara listened intently, fingers drumming on the table. Each new phrase seemed to draw curiosity in her eyes. Jack realized that he held more power here than he had on the auction block. His voice, his time, his knowledge, these were treasures. To the queen, as he finished the first chapter, she closed the book gently. "You have done well," Azara said, voice soft with admiration. Jack felt warmth flood his chest. For the first time, someone praised him without cruelty. He managed a small nod. Azara stood and moved to a window overlooking a garden glowing under artificial lights. She studied the flowers and statues before speaking again. "You will teach me of your world," she declared. Jack's heart pounded. Teach the queen of an alien empire about Earth? It seemed impossible, yet her request held no threat. She did not demand blood or tears. She sought knowledge. Round them, servants prepared a simple meal of fruit and bread. The scent of fresh strawberries filled the room. Jack tasted one and nearly cried at its sweetness. Azara watched him with quiet interest. As night fell over the palace ship, Jack settled on a cushion beside Azara. He felt safe for the first time in years. In the distance, stars flickered against a dark sky. Queen Azara reclined on her dais, eyes fixed on Jack. She spoke one final time before sleep claimed them both. Rest now, Jack. Tomorrow we begin. Jack closed his eyes, mind racing with wonder and fear. Tomorrow he would teach a queen, and his life would change forever. He drifted into dreams, unsure of what awaited him, but certain that nothing would ever be the same. Asked ChatGPT. Queen Azara rose early the next morning. Soft light filtered through the tall windows of her private chamber. She found Jack already awake, seated on a cushion beside a low table. He held a small sketchbook and several colored stones shaped like earth pigments. When he saw the queen enter, he bowed his head and offered her a gentle greeting. "Good morning, Your Majesty," he said quietly. Azara nodded and sat across from him. The air smelled of fresh linen and warm tea. The servant brought 2 cups of herbal blend, sweet with honey. Jack sipped slowly and handed her a cup. The queen's fingers brushed his hand as she took it, and both paused for a moment. After a respectful silence, Azara spoke. "Today you will teach me about human art," she said, her voice calm but curious. Jack's heart pounded at the task. He had painted only simple images as a child, but he remembered the joy those colors brought him. He arranged the stones on the table, red for clay, blue for sky, yellow for sun. Azara watched as he ground them into fine powder and mixed them with water. He dipped a reed brush into the fluid paint and drew a simple circle on a piece of parchment. "This is the sun," he explained. Then he added long lines around the circle. "Humans paint the sun to show warmth and hope." Azara leaned forward, studying every stroke. She tried to copy his movements, her hand shaking as she dragged the brush across the page. A line wavered, but still formed a bright arc. She looked up at Jack with a shy smile. They spent hours like this. Jack painted a tree next, its trunk, wide and sturdy. He used dark green for leaves and brown for bark. He told the queen that humans see trees as symbols of life and growth. Azara closed her eyes for a moment, imagining a forest on earth, the sound of wind through leaves. When she opened her eyes, tears glistened on her cheeks. But she did not wipe them away. Jack paused his work. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. Azara nodded. "I have never felt this before," she admitted. "Beauty of your world touches me." She reached out and touched the painted tree, as if she could feel its life. Jack felt a new bond forming between them. Earlier he felt fear. Now he felt purpose. After a simple meal of fresh fruit and bread, Jack brought out a small stringed instrument, a wooden box with taut wires and a curved neck. Azara watched as he plucked a gentle note. The sound was low and warm, he explained. "Humans call this a lute. People use music to share feelings." He played a slow melody, one he remembered from childhood lullabies. The notes rose and fell like slow waves. Azara closed her eyes and listened. A tear fell onto the instrument's polished surface. When the song ended, she whispered, "It feels like wind and water and sun all at once." Jack smiled, gently, tuned a higher note, and played a second, more joyful tune. This one was bright and lively. Azara opened her eyes and began to tap her foot, then lifted her hands and swayed. The corners of her lips curved into a small smile. After music, Jack shared another human wonder: laughter. He recalled a simple joke about a thirsty chicken that crossed a desert for water. Then she closed her eyes, and a soft chuckle escaped her. She tried to hold it back, but soon her laughter rang clear in the chamber. Her guards outside paused at the door, startled by the sound. Jack laughed too, delighted by her joy. The moments of art, music, and laughter wove together into something. neither had known before. Azara felt lighter, as if a heavy weight had lifted from her shoulders. She looked at Jack with new respect. "You have given me gifts more precious than any treasure," she said. "Your world is full of wonders." Jack's chest swelled with pride and relief. He realized he was no longer just a slave or a pet. He was a teacher and a friend. Word of these lessons spread quickly among the palace. Advisors whispered in hushed tones. Some feared the queen's focus had shifted too much toward this human. Others saw promise in the new alliance of ideas. General Maris, the queen's chief military advisor, entered the chamber late in the afternoon. He stood rigid. Beside Azara's dais, "Your Majesty, the council awaits your decision on the border treaties," he said. Azarasin turned to Jack. "In a moment," she told the general. Then she addressed Jack with warmth. "Tomorrow, I will show the court your teaching. We will host a gathering to display human art and music." Jack's eyes widened. Such a thing had never happened. In this empire, queens did not host simple gatherings. They held grand balls and formal banquets, but never celebrations of foreign culture. That evening, servants prepared the main hall for the event. They hung Jack's paintings along the walls and polished every surface until it gleamed. Musicians from distant star systems arrived to play alongside Jack's simple lute. Nobles and envoys filed in, curious about the queen's new fascination. Jack stood beside Azara near the entrance, both dressed simply, but with quiet dignity. As the hall filled with light and sound, Azara placed a hand on Jack's shoulder. She spoke softly in his ear. "You have changed me and my empire," she said. Jack looked up at her, mind racing. The palace felt alive with possibility. Together they would show the court that human art and music could bring hope and unity. Jack's heart swelled with purpose. He never imagined that a simple human from Earth could stand beside a queen and shape an empire. Yet there he was, teaching an alien ruler the beauty of his world. And as the first guests entered and admired the paintings, he knew that this lesson was only the beginning. Jack woke before dawn, the palace hall silent and cool. He walked through marble corridors toward the grand hall where Queen Azara waited. She sat on a low bench beside a window that looked out at the rising sun. When Jack arrived, she offered him a small smile. "Your thoughts on yesterday's gathering?" she asked. Jack knelt and spoke softly of how the envoys reacted to simple art and music. His words were clear and honest, and Azara found comfort in his calm voice. She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, her fingers warm against his skin. After their early talk, Azara called her advisors for a treaty session. General Maris entered with stern eyes. "Your Majesty, the council demands clarity on trade borders," he said. Azara motioned to Jack. "Help me present our terms in plain words," she asked. Jack's heart pounded as he rose. He studied the treaty scroll and rephrased complex clauses into simple phrases. The advisors listened and nodded in understanding. When he finished, Azara turned to Maris. "This is how we speak to build trust," she said. Maris fell silent, impressed by the human's humble wisdom. Midday brought a simple meal of fresh fruit and flatbread. Servants placed a platter before Jack and Azara in the small garden courtyard. Vines climbed trellises overhead, and the scent of jasmine filled the air. Jack bit into a sweet pear and offered Azara a slice. She tasted it and closed her eyes in delight. "This sweetness is gentle," she murmured. Jack laughed softly. "On Earth, we share food to show friendship," he explained. Azara leaned forward, studying him as he spoke. In that moment, she felt a new bond of trust form between them. After lunch, Azara introduced Jack to her court as a cultural advisor. A group of lower nobles gathered in a bright room decorated with tapestries. Jack stood beside Azara and spoke of human unity and simple art. He used plain language and humble gestures, and the nobles leaned forward to listen. Some wiped tears from their eyes at his stories of Earth's small villages helping each other. When he finished, the nobles clapped. Softly, Azara's heart swelled with pride. She bowed to Jack and whispered, "You speak truth." Jack returned her bow, voice quiet with gratitude. As afternoon shadows lengthened, whispers of jealousy passed through the palace. Some nobles feared Azara's new interest in human ideas. They plotted to divide the queen's attention, sensed their tension, and called Jack to her private study. She closed the door and turned to him with worry in her eyes. "They doubt my choices," she said. Jack placed his hand over hers. "Your Majesty, truth and kindness will guide you," he assured. Azara nodded, drawing strength from his calm faith. She realized she used Jack not only for art, but also to steady her own doubts. In the evening, Azara invited Jack for a walk in the palace gardens. Lanterns glowed along winding paths, and fountains whispered in the cool air. They strolled side by side beneath tall, flowering shrubs. Azara paused, beside a marble statue of her ancestor. "I have worn this crown for years," she said softly. "Yet I felt alone until you came." Jack looked at her, heart aching with understanding, spoke gently of Earth's friendships, of how people trust each other without titles. Azara listened, tears glistening on her cheeks. He reached out and took her hand in his. They continued through shadowed arches to a hidden pavilion where white roses climbed over wooden beams. Azara sank onto a stone bench, and Jack sat beside her. She leaned her head on his shoulder and spoke of her fierce fear of betrayal, fear of loneliness, fear that she ruled without heart. Jack wrapped an arm around her, offering silent comfort. Azara felt his kindness fill a place inside her she never knew was empty. She used his presence to heal a wound she had carried since childhood. When the moon rose high, they returned to the palace. Servants had prepared a small feast of nuts and sweet wine. Azara poured a cup for Jack and one for herself. They drank in quiet companionship, sharing stories of faraway stars. Jack spoke of Earth's calm nights under open skies. Azara closed her eyes and tasted the peace in his words. She felt a deep gratitude for this human, who taught her more about her own heart than all her advisors combined. The next morning, Azara summoned the full council. They gathered in the great chamber under colorful banners. Jack stood at her side, calm and confident. Azara spoke of new policies born from human lessons, policies of mercy, art, and honest speech. As she spoke, Jack held the attention of every noble with simple reminders of shared hope. The council murmured agreement and passed her reforms with little debate. Some envoys even wept at the vision of a kinder empire. After the meeting, Azara stepped onto the balcony, overlooking the palace grounds. Jack joined her, and they watched the sunrise together. She placed a hand on his back. "You have changed my empire and my heart," she said. Jack bowed his head in respect. "It is my honor," he replied. Together they watched as new banners of art and peace unfurled in the morning breeze. As the day began, palace whispers turned to praise. Many hailed the human's gentle wisdom, while a few remained wary. Queen Azara stood firm in her choice. She had used Jack for knowledge and comfort, for honest counsel and heartfelt friendship. In return, he had given her something more precious than any treasure, trust. And as they walked back into the palace, hand in hand, both knew that their bonds would guide the empire toward a future of unity and hope. Queen Azara woke before dawn, her heart quick with hope for the day. The grand hall of the palace was heavy with the scent of fresh stone and jasmine. Servants moved in quiet lines, carrying soft lanterns and delicate silk banners painted with human art. Jack walked among them, his eyes bright as he arranged simple paintings of earth fields, rivers, and stars. He pointed to places where a brushstroke could smooth. The royal architect nodded at Jack's suggestions. The hall lay empty. Beneath tall pillars, every detail felt new to the empire. Azara stood on the balcony, her gaze steady and proud as she watched preparations unfold, as morning light spread through stained glass. Jack guided the placement of tables and chairs. Simple wooden tables held plates of fresh fruit, crusty bread, and jars of honey. Crystal cups caught the light of pale lanterns, scattering gentle reflections across polished floors. Silk drapes of blue and gold framed high windows. Jack moved from one corner to another, rehearsing his words for the guests. Servants listened closely and remembered each instruction. A few artists carried paintings on stretchers, careful not to smudge the vibrant pigments. Through the windows, a breeze brought the scent of desert roses. Everyone worked in quiet harmony, eager for the gala to begin. Soon the gates opened and envoys arrived from distant systems. They came in simple robes and metal armor, each bearing unique heraldry. Azara welcomed them with a warm bow. Jack stood beside her, holding a small flute. The envoys passed through the hall, their eyes widening at the human art and music notes. In the air, some whispered to each other. Others stepped closer to paintings. A tall envoy from the ice world examined the river scene. A thin envoy from the jungle world touched the painted tree. They nodded in quiet approval and moved on to greet Azara and Jack. Queen Azara greeted each envoy by name, her voice calm and clear. Jack offered brief introductions to Earth and its people. He spoke in simple phrases about fields of flowers and towns where people helped each other. The envoys listened intently. Some asked questions about human houses and human art. Jack replied with gentle words that painted pictures in their minds. Azara watched him, her chest swelling with pride. She saw how the envoys responded to his honesty and warmth. Around them, the hall felt alive with new energy. The Empire's colors mingled with human images, and the two cultures began to weave together. Near the center of the hall, Jack stood by a long row of paintings. It showed a human scene, a village festival, children learning by firelight, farmers working side by side. The envoys paused before each one. Jack explained the symbols and colors, told them that red could mean strength and green could mean hope. A small envoy from the desert world smiled when he saw a painting of stars above open fields. Queen Azara added her own words, praising the beauty of Earth and its simple joys. The envoys nodded again, and some began to talk among themselves, of shared traditions on their own worlds. After the art display, Jack invited the envoys to hear a short music piece. He lifted his simple flute and played a slow melody from Earth. The notes were soft like warm water. The envoys closed their eyes and listened. Some placed hands on their hearts. When the melody ended, Jack changed to a joyful tune that rose. Like bright sunlight, envoys from the forest world sang a soft chorus. Others beat gentle drums from their planets. The sounds blended across the hall. Queen Azara tapped her foot. Some nobles clapped softly for the new rhythm. An envoy whispered, "This music feels like family." Then Queen Azara stepped forward to speak. She addressed the envoys in a strong but kind voice. She spoke of peace and cooperation between worlds. Jack stood beside her and explained key points in plain terms. He said that humans believe in unity and that cooperation brings strength. Azara nodded at him, her eyes bright. The envoys listened as she declared that each system could benefit from trade, art, and shared knowledge. At her request, envoys signed simple treaties displayed on a long table. They dipped their fingers in ink and pressed them onto parchment. A quiet cheer rose as each treaty was sealed. After the formal signing, servants brought a simple feast of roasted nuts, sweet fruits, and fresh bread. Cool water flowed in crystal pitchers, and jars of honey and jam waited on the tables. Envoys sat together at long benches, passing plates and stories. Jack offered a slice of warm bread to an envoy from the mountain world. The envoy smiled. Tasting the soft crumb, one by one, the hall filled with conversation. Envoys spoke of their own music and art. Miners' folk songs mingled with Jack's earthly tune. Queen Azara walked among them, sharing smiles and listening to new ideas. From each planet, as the sun dipped low, the hall glowed with lantern light. Envoys rose to leave, but paused before the paintings and instruments. They thanked Queen Azara and Jack for sharing Earth's gifts. Some envoys offered their own art in return: a delicate crystal carving, scroll of ancient runes, a small sculpture of swirling metal. Servants placed these treasures beside the human paintings. Jack accepted each with a bow. Azara held the crystal carving to the light and saw rainbows dance within. She turned to Jack, her voice soft. "Your world has changed this empire forever." Late that evening, Queen Azara and Jack stood alone in the empty hall. Lanterns cast gentle shadows across the paintings and gifts. Azara placed a hand on Jack's shoulder. She spoke with a calm smile. "Today you helped build bridges between worlds," she said. Jack looked around and nodded. On Earth, we believe a single act of kindness can spread hope, he replied. Azara clasped his hand. This kindness will echo across stars, she promised. Together they walked toward the palace gates, their steps echoing in the silent hall. Beyond them, banners of art and peace fluttered in a gentle breeze, a sign of dawn in every heart. Jack woke to the soft glow of dawn slipping through her private chamber's tall windows. Queen Azara stood beside his cot, watching him stir. She stepped forward and placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Jack, she whispered, I wish you to read to me again. He sat up and opened a small book of earth poems. His voice was low and steady as he spoke. Azara closed her eyes and let each simple verse wash over her. In that moment, she used him for her own desire, the comfort of another voice in the quiet morning. After the poem, Jack saw her pale face, marked by the shadow of sleepless nights. She confessed that nightmares had haunted her since childhood. Jack offered to sit by her side until the sun rose. He held a cup of warm tea between his palms and spoke of gentle earth memories. The queen listened, finding relief in his calm words. She found she could lean on him not only for knowledge, but also for solace when her heart grew heavy. Later, the palace halls buzzed with talk of growing unrest on the Empire's frontier worlds. Queen Azara summoned her council and then turned to Jack. She desired his honest view on the tense borders. He studied the reports and spoke in plain words. The people there fear they are forgotten, he said.
Ow.
They need hope, not threats. Azara nodded and thanked him. She used his simple counsel to shape a plan of kindness rather than force. That afternoon, Azara asked Jack to help draft a new treaty. She spread the parchment on a low table and watched as Jack rephrased the complex clauses into clear promises of aid and friendship. Nobles sniffed at its simplicity, but when Azara endorsed every line, they fell silent. She used Jack's plain words to remind them that true strength came from trust. It's not from fear or pride. As the sun dipped low, Azara led Jack to the palace conservatory. She desired to know of earth, weather, and life. Jack knelt among potted ferns and wildflowers and described rain that fell softly on fields. He spoke of thunder's distant roll and the calm that came after the storm. Azara closed her eyes and breathed in the scent of damp soil. She asked him to teach the palace gardeners how to mimic that rain. He agreed, and together they planned a small water system for the conservatory. That evening, rumors of revolt reached the palace. Couriers spoke of angry colonists near the farthest outpost. Azara's brow furrowed with worry. She summoned Jack once more, her voice tight with fear. "Will you come with me?" she asked. He rose without hesitation. She used his presence to steady her heart before she faced the uncertain journey ahead. The next morning, Queen Azara and Jack boarded a sleek courier ship bound for the frontier. Jack studied the star charts and shared simple tales of Earth's small villages coming together in hard times. Azara listened, drawing courage from his words. When they landed, restless colonists gathered in a dusty square. Azara spoke first, but her words were formal and distant. Then she nodded to Jack and he stepped forward. In clear, honest speech, he spoke of shared hopes and common dreams. The crowd fell silent. Jack's basic words reached through their fear. He spoke of people who built homes in wild lands by helping each other. Slowly, colonists relaxed. They saw in him a symbol of hope and kindness. Queen Azara watched with pride and gratitude. She used Jack's simple truth to calm a world on the brink of anger. As dusk fell, the Queen and Jack sat by a campfire at the edge of the outpost. Pale flames flickered across their faces. Azara confessed her doubt and loneliness in this new land. Jack shared Earth stories of neighbors gathering to share food and laughter under starlight. She listened and found comfort in his gentle tone. She used his friendship to heal a part of her she had hidden even from herself. Before dawn, the two returned to the outpost council. Azara announced a new festival of unity to be held in the colony's main plaza. She placed Jack at her side and invited every colonist to paint and play music as he had taught her. The settlers cheered at the promise of joy after fear. She used Jack's art and music to bring color back to their dusty world. Back at the palace, word of her success spread quickly. Some nobles applauded her courage and Jack's role in it. Others seethed with jealousy at the human who had become Azur's closest advisor. They plotted to discredit him. But Azur stood firm. She used her royal decree to grant Jack a title of honored guest and a residence near her own chambers. In the throne room, Queen Azara and Jack faced a gathering of allied governors. She spoke of peace and unity and then asked Jack to swear his vow to stand by her side. In clear, simple words, Jack promised his loyalty to justice and mercy. The governors bowed and pledged their own support. Azara smiled at him with deep affection. She had used Jack for her own desires of comfort, counsel, and unity. In return, he had given her hope and purpose beyond any crown. Together, they stood ready to guide the empire toward a future built on trust and shared dreams. Queen Azara stood at the edge of the balcony, watching the stars twinkle above the palace grounds. It had been a long journey, one full of challenges and change, but now everything felt different. How the empire was stronger, more united, and she had Jack to thank for much of it. She could feel the weight of the crown, but with him beside her, it no longer felt as heavy. He had become not only her advisor, but a trusted friend, someone who saw her beyond the title of queen. Jack walked quietly up behind her, his footsteps soft against the stone. He had noticed the way she'd been staring at the stars more often lately. It reminded him of the times back home, when he would sit with his family under the night sky and simply talk about life. He stood beside her and offered a warm smile. "You look like you're thinking about something important." Azara turned her head slightly, meeting his gaze. "I am," she said, her voice soft but filled with purpose. "I'm thinking about the future. Our future." She glanced toward the stars again, and how much more we can achieve together. Jack nodded, his heart full. "You've already done so much. You've brought change to this empire in ways no one could have imagined." She smiled at his praise, but shook her head. "We've done this together. Your lessons, your wisdom, it's changed me. It's changed all of us." She paused, considering her words. "I think we're ready." "For the next step? What do you mean?" Jack asked, a slight frown forming on his forehead. He had learned to understand the queen's words carefully, as she often hinted at larger plans when she spoke. "I mean," Azara said, turning to face him, "it's time to show the galaxy that we are not just a place of power, but of peace. We can bring the same unity here to the stars." Jack's eyes widened with understanding. "You want to reach out, don't you? Bring other worlds together the way you brought this one together." "Exactly," she said, her voice firm now. "I've been thinking about the rest of the galaxy. We've shown we can work together, that we can live side by side in peace. I want to extend that hand to every world that's out there, no matter their size or strength. We have the resources, the knowledge, and the heart to make it work." Jack felt a sense of awe rise within him. It wasn't just the queen's ambition that impressed him, it was the way she thought of others. The way she believed in something greater than herself. He'd seen her lead with courage, but this was a new side of her. The vision of a future that could change everything. "You really think we can do this?" Azara smiled, her eyes glowing with a spark of hope. "I know. We can. And I want you by my side when we do." The words hit Jack deeply. He had never thought of himself as anything more than a simple human, someone who had been lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time. But now, standing here beside a queen who trusted him, who saw something in him, he realized that maybe he was part of something bigger, or maybe he wasn't just helping her, maybe they were helping each other. "You don't have to ask. I'm with you. Always." As the days passed, Queen Azara and Jack worked together to put her plan into motion. They sent out peaceful messages to the farthest reaches of the galaxy, inviting other worlds to meet and discuss trade, knowledge, and unity. Zara's vision was becoming a reality, and Jack's words helped to shape the language that made the invitations sound genuine, without any hidden agendas. They worked late into the night, drafting documents and preparing speeches, all while maintaining the simplicity that had brought them success. One evening, as they sat by the glowing hearth, in Azara's chamber, Jack looked over at her and saw a flicker of doubt in her eyes. It was a fleeting moment, but it was enough for him to notice. "What's on your mind?" he asked gently. Setting down the pen he had been holding, Azur let out a deep breath. I wonder if they'll believe us, she said, her voice a little softer now. If they'll trust our message. We've built peace here, but the galaxy is so vast, not everyone believes in it. Jack leaned back in his chair, considering her words. You're right. It's a big galaxy, and some worlds have been through a lot. They're not going to trust easily. That doesn't mean we shouldn't try. You've shown that peace. Is possible? You've already changed your own people. I believe you can do it again, Zara smiled, her gaze softening. Thank you. You always know what to say, he shrugged, trying to hide his smile. I just speak the truth. With their invitations sent and their visions shared, Azara and Jack waited anxiously. The response came faster than they expected. Representatives from distant worlds began arriving at the palace, their ships landing one by one on the green fields surrounding the castle. The first meetings were formal, but as they continued, something shifted. The atmosphere became lighter. Trust was slowly built. Conversations started to flow, and soon. They were not just discussing peace, they were making plans for it. Jack stood by Azara during one of the first major gatherings. He watched as she spoke with grace and confidence, guiding every conversation with care. Her words were simple, but they held power. She had done what no one else thought possible. She had brought peace to her empire. And now she was spreading that peace to the galaxy. As the meetings went on, Jack realized that this wasn't just about the galaxy or even the empire. It was about creating something lasting, something good. Together, Azara and Jack were shaping a future that had once seemed impossible. And in that moment, Jack knew that whatever came next, they would face it together, one step at a time.